I'm really enthused about this topic. Have a lot of passion for this topic. Put a lot of time and research into it over the years. And today you get to find out what kind of thought goes into supplements, nutrients, how to build a perfect vitamin, how to shop for vitamins, and what is pertinent and what is not pertinent. So this topic is of huge importance. For those of you that have never met me, I'm Dr. Boer. I'm board certified and licensed as a naturopathic doctor, as well as chiropractic physician. Dr. Stacey's board certified and licensed as a chiropractic physician, and is also certified in chiropractic veterinarian medicine. So if you see a horse stampeding through the office, then you know what's happening. This is an absolutely huge topic. Quality control is of great concern in this country, and I, being a newbie, started this practice, we started about 25 years ago, not quite, and just started recommending nutrients as I had been taught and had experience with, and I was not getting response like I had expected, like I was used to. And at first I was just blaming it on those Americans. They don't exercise, they don't eat right, lifestyle. And then I thought, you know, that's too easy an answer. That just doesn't happen that easily. So started checking more thoroughly into why patient response wasn't as good as expected, and did some independent studies. One of the easiest things to study is getting a count on ascorbic acid, vitamin C. It's a relatively inexpensive test. It's easy to do. So I gathered up a bunch of bottles and ran the ascorbic acid test and found that on average, inside the bottle, 20% of label claim. On average. Something did not even have any. Wow, that was an eye-opener. That was the very start of my journey. I was absolutely shocked. And I was so thrilled that in my graduate studies, they taught me just how to test ascorbic acid. It was one of our labs, and it's an easy test to do. So then we started checking out some other things, and I started reading and seeing others that had tested and trialed supplements, and found that virtually none of the probiotics in the market had any live activity. And then started discovering contamination, and started seeing rancidity, and started seeing things in products that shouldn't be there. And I'm going, isn't the FDA supposed to take care of this? Aren't they there supposed to protect us? No. This is a totally unregulated industry. It is the Wild West. Anything goes as long as you don't kill people. And that's where we are at today. They're trying to tighten up rules, but they're having a hard time with it. And when I compared to where I originally am from, the Netherlands, and really the Western European nations, they adhere to the same standards with pharmaceuticals, nutrients, everything across the line is under one big umbrella. And they have different agencies that really work with these companies. One of them is called German Commission E. And German Commission E, and I'm just mentioning that Dr. Stacey is going to get into quality control right away, but I can cover German Commission E, right? German Commission E requires that you have 10 years of clinical trials on a substance. You have to show clinical efficacy, you have to show how it works, why it works, and you have to give proof of stability, purity, how it was harvested, it goes on and on. So when you're buying something with the German Commission E label on it, you know you're getting something that's very clinically relevant, has been trialed, does work, and you're not just getting something random. So when you buy something that's, say, from Switzerland or Germany, you'd think, well, this is going to be good stuff. Not necessarily, because they are capitalists also. And they sometimes have two lines of vitamins and nutrients rolling, one destined for North America and one for the local market. It's a lot less expensive to make it for those Americans because they don't check it anyways. And all the rejected things from their purity assays on the raw materials go into the American stuff and go shipped right over here. Isn't that just absolutely amazing? So you have to know how to look at labels, how to shop for that, and we hope to teach you some of those things today. It's fun stuff. Quality control doesn't just apply to nutrients, however. Pharmaceuticals are also in there. We have had adverse reactions to prescription drugs administered by physicians, and it caused 106,000 deaths and 2.2 million serious non-fatal drug reactions in 1 year period, 94. I chose that year because that's the very first year we became aware of this statistic. If you look at the subsequent years, that number has gone up, not down. We're now in the 140s per year, killed by pharmaceuticals with proper prescription. We're not talking mistakes here. If you add mistakes to it, we estimate, we don't have firm data on this, that the number goes up to 250,000 deaths a year. This is quality control as far as a problem, as far as efficacy, as far as side effects. It's a mind-boggling number. It is now considered the number 3 or 4th leading cause of death in the United States. And I just heard a statistic just a few weeks ago that sleeping pills across the board cause between a 5- and 7-fold increase in death risk if used only twice a week. That, to me, I know your mouths are supposed to be hanging open right now, but it's kind of depressing, isn't it? And I personally know several patients that have these unexplained deaths, and I happen to know that they were on sleeping pills, so then I am wondering, is that what happened to them? Is that what happened to them, that they never woke up? Got an interesting collage of just some random headlines that I gathered together, and these are just from mainstream media. This is not from journals, except for one of them. LA Times questions the quality of herbs. Lactobacillus products mislabeled and contaminated. Herbs seriously contaminated with heavy metals and pathogens. Nutrient interactions inhibit mineral absorption from multiple vitamin mineral supplements. Calcium supplements contaminated with lead. Real big problem, by the way. These are all fairly recent headlines. LA Times, testing St. John's wort. Labels potency claims often inaccurate, analysis finds. And if you dig into that article, by the way, on average, 20% of label claim. And you know what's even more disturbing? If you dig into this again, St. John's wort's used for blues and mild depression. It's also a good tonic for the liver. Really, the active ingredient of St. John's wort is the flower itself. You can call it St. John's wort if you rip the whole plant out like they do, dry and chop up the whole plant and throw it in there. St. John's wort supplement. No wonder that just recently an Ivy League medical school did the clinical trials of St. John's wort and found it to be no better than placebo. I'm going, well, duh. We're not really studying St. John's wort there. And that's how this whole misinformation mill starts going and can confuse us, can't it? So potency 20 to 140% of label claim. Herb contamination with mold and mycotoxin, very common. A lot of herbs have, as a problem, mold grown on them, and in order to make the claim that they're organic, they're not using pesticides and other products to keep mold away, so very often they are very much contaminated with mold. It's also a problem with tea, by the way. That's a whole other topic. Probiotic quality and contamination. In this one particular study, it studied 7 different probiotics, found live activity in only 2 of them. Of the 2, one had experienced genetic drift, in other words, had been replicated so many times it was no longer the same bacteria it started with, which means only 1 out of 7 had anything good in it. So, it's a bit of a depressing story, isn't it? But it's going to get more cheery, folks. It will. The 12 supplement ingredients listed have been linked to serious adverse effects, or in the case of glandular supplements, to strong theoretical risks. And this is what Consumer Reports published, and I agree with this list, by the way. This is a very hazardous one, aristolochic acid. And aristolochic acid is a common used stabilizer in most Chinese herbs. So Chinese herbs have this. This is a very strong carcinogenic agent and causes your liver to liquefy. It literally can cause instant liver death. This stuff is bad. The very likely hazardous is comfrey, a steroid derivative, chaparral, germander, and kava. Now, kava has been unfairly picked upon. We had 3 deaths in the United States from kava, which is why it was yanked from the market, and rightly so. But really, the kava that caused the deaths was the wrong kind of kava. There's many different subtypes of kava, and this manufacturer was using the wrong one, causing this unfortunate death. The way it causes death, its side effect is too much relaxation, and blood pressure drops too low, central nervous system activity drops too low, and you can stop breathing. So, kind of a serious one. This one, and this one, it is more related to liver toxicity as well as kidney toxicity. So potential interaction with medications as well. And the androstenedione can cause high blood pressure and anxiety. So those are the ones that you watch for. And then there's bitter orange, glandulars, lobelia, pennyroyal oil, skullcap, and yohimbe. Yohimbe can cause hormonal changes. Skullcap is related to kidney toxicity. The pennyroyal oil can cause yeast overgrowth in the gut. Lobelia, again, associated with liver toxicity. The glandulars, they have the risk of having bovine spongiform encephalopathy, which is mad cow disease. But if you get them, there is 2 products that we have here, Nature's Remedies, that do have glandulars in them, simply because I've not found anything else that can possibly compare to it. One of them is adrenogen, and the other one's T100. And these 2, I've very carefully made sure that they come from New Zealand, where there's never ever been a single case of that disease ever, all organic, and has been triple checked by the strictest standards in the world right there in New Zealand. So bitter orange can also be very hard on the liver. Interesting list, huh? So that's the dirty dozen. So this is where Dr. Stacey jumps in. How do you determine if a manufacturer has good quality control? Take it away.
Thank you. I brought up extra notes because when I put my slides together, I realized I definitely didn't cover enough. So basically, I do have some handouts in the other room that are on the table. So when you leave, if you go into our reception area, we do have handouts from a couple of the companies that we use on one of the multivitamins that Dr. Denboer is talking about tonight. And then also one of the companies that we could only get their quality control stuff through at such a short time because I was last minute on it. So basically the 5 different things that we look for when we're looking at a company, we want to make sure that they're GMP certified, they have good manufacturing processes, past comprehensive scientific evaluation, comprehensive safety reviews. Human clinical evaluations is one of the few things that you're going to find that companies will be able to do. This does take a lot of staff. It does take a lot of money. As you know, with pharmacology, it takes a lot of money to get a research clinical trial to go through. So everything that we have that's used through our one company, which is Metagenics, they have a clinic that they use out in Washington. So that's what they use all of their staffing for and run all their clinical evaluations on them. With anything of ours that says medical food, it's actually gone through human clinical trials to perform exactly as what the medical food is supposed to do, whether it's detoxification, inflammation, anti-inflammatories, that kind of thing. So what you want to look for when you're looking at GMP certified, so we'll start back a little bit. You want to look at the authenticity of the product. You want to know that the ingredient on the label is actually what's in the product. There's a lot of companies that'll put ingredients that are on the label and there'll be additives that are in the product that aren't actually on the label. You want to check the potency. You need to know that the amount that's on the label is the minimum amount that will be there at the expiration of the product. So all the companies that we work with test, independent assay all of their supplements, and they will go through and make sure that everything makes it to expiration at that minimum amount. Now there's probably more potency, especially in our probiotics, before expiration, but we know that that minimum amount is there.
Can I jump in here for a second?
Oh, please, go ahead.
I had the opportunity, I make sure that we visit the manufacturers as much as we can to personally check in on it. And I've seen the GMP certified versus non-GMP certified plants, and it's an amazing difference. And also be aware that there's a lot of people who like to put a fake GMP on there, and it says GMP compliant. But it's got to be GMP certified, and in order to do that, there are so many. It's very expensive to do. There's not many companies that are able to do it, and it takes it up and above and beyond anything that the FDA ever has required for any pharmaceutical firm. So a non-GMP certified company that I visited a while ago was literally bringing in its raw materials with a front-end loader. This is a diesel tractor into the facility itself. I could just see this stuff just spewing up in the air and then just dumping it on the floor, and that's what was going to be our vitamins. And yeah, they said, well, we independently assay it, make sure, blah, blah, blah. I was thinking, that just is sloppy. And just the diesel fumes alone said, nah. I just real quickly went through the plant. And by the way, this is a big plant that most of us know. And so that was that one. And then I had the opportunity in Gig Harbor to check out a GMP certified plant, and it was just amazing. The first thing that struck me was these little electric high-lows going in a special secure area where the stuff was stored. They had special material they would put over the material and dump it into these big cardboard bins, and then bring it into the plant via this positive air pressure plant where you open the doors, everything blows out, nothing can come in. And there was a special solution they had to sweep the floor with 3 times a day. Everybody is wearing these little white things over their shoes and their hats, and everything is always gloves on. And if you're checked for your temperature every day you show up for work. If you have even a slight temperature, you're not allowed in. And so the GMP certification is absolutely amazing to have. And yeah, it takes a little bit of know-how and smart's definitely worth looking at. So it's one of the things that we try to look at. We're going to address questions afterwards, and then I'll keep it going. Sorry to interrupt, but
you're fine.
Couldn't resist.
Good manufacturing process or practices. I did pull out off the internet and the GMP certification thing that they have to go through. It lines out what everybody has to do, the personnel, what they have to do, the written procedures that they have to do, and the records that they have to keep. And it goes on for 9 pages of everything that they have to do to become GMP certified. A lot of the GMP, if you look for the true GMP, I believe it has a small c in front of the G for the GMP certification on the label. The other thing that we'll get back to, my authenticity, the potency, the purity. You need to make sure that the product is pure, that there's no unlisted ingredients in the product. Now they're supposed to be listing all the ingredients in the product, including the fillers. There are some companies who do not fully comply with that. You have to make sure there's no dangerous levels of biological or chemical contaminants. Fillers or additives. Fillers are very common, as you see across the board with a lot of different companies. As Doc was talking about with the St. John's wort, just cutting it all up and using that entire mass for your supplement. The problem is that certain companies go along and you want the best of the best. Just like we always talk about with our echinacea, whenever the company that we use looks at echinacea, they harvest it at the correct time when it's blooming and make sure that there's no contamination. It's not too late, it's not too early. You have like 24 hours to harvest this plant. Whereas everybody else, you can use like the branches, they'll use the leaves, and that's what they consider sludge within the rest of the market. So even though the companies that are really testing and looking at the quality of their supplements, the rest of that will still be sold off to somebody else, and somebody else will buy that and put that into their vitamins and supplements, and those are the ones that tend to have either the bad side effects or you'll get no result out of them. So that kind of gives everybody else a bad name. And that's what we really want everybody to look at, is look at what the quality is that you're seeing. If it's not listed, call the company. If you can't find it on their website, call and ask what do you guys go through to do your testing? Are you certified or you're not certified? You know, what levels of heavy metals are you testing, especially with fish oil, which Dr. Dunbar will talk about here in a little bit. There's two different things that you want to rule out with different substances. You want to make sure that there's no adulterants in them. And adulterants mean the impurities. These are things that are deliberately added to help the company make more money. So everybody probably remembers back in 2007 when we had that scare with cat and dog food, where we had a lot of animals pass away. It was actually melamine that was added into the food. It found its way into the pet foods. Well, in 2008, it also found its way into milk products, instant coffee products, and candies that were manufactured in China. The problem is that when you add this melamine to the milk powder, it actually increased the nitrogen content. That nitrogen content made it look like you had more protein in that. So even though the label read more protein, which means that you could get more money out of the product, it actually had side effects, which, as we see, are kidney problems with most patients. There's contaminants that you have to worry about. On top of that, the contaminants mainly that we worry a lot about are heavy metals, because heavy metals seem to be everywhere now. Pesticides and chemicals. You always want to worry about the herbicides, the fungicides, anything that's being put on the plants. You want to make sure that those are being tested and not proved to be in there, because obviously that can make even more of an issue in the long run. Alrighty. Oh, and that was the other one. Now, I have a lot of patients always ask me, what do you think about this company? Do you think this company is a good company? As I always try to tell everybody, I try to research stay current on what the new research is on the different additives in the supplements, or like the vitamins that we're using now. What's the most common side effects? What depletes in different prescription drugs? So I always tell everybody the best thing to do is we can go online, we can get you one of these. It's a supplement quality audit form. And basically what you do is you ask the company to fill out the audit form and basically ask them what are your quality control issues and all of that. And most of the time, companies won't send it back because they won't pass half of them. If they do, then you usually have a good quality company that you're working with. So that's one of the things that I'll always pass off to patients, because there's so many supplemental companies out there now that it's really hard to keep up on what exactly every single one works for. So really what we try to do is we keep up with the ones that we know that have the clinical trials behind them. We know the staffing is kept up to date, their education is kept up to date. And that's really what we're looking for in products, is we want as clean of a product that the patient can get. Yes, it's not always the cheapest one on the market, but usually if you're going to get a good quality product, it's not going to be inexpensive. It's kind of like food. There you go.
Yeah, it is kind of like food. I like that last statement. And sometimes what might be a little bit more expensive in the front ends up being a lot cheaper at the end, because there's nothing more expensive than being ill. So times have changed, and healing results are tougher than ever. Why? This is definitely true. As a physician, as a clinic, we have seen that in the last dozen years, it seems like, wow, the things that we used to do worked like this, and now all of a sudden we're having to do a song and dance and do it more comprehensive and go higher in dosage and really go after it full tilt before we get results with some patients. It's like having to punch through an extra layer. And you know what? We do have to punch through an extra layer. It's the layer is thicker for us to punch through because the DNA is being damaged right now. This is a cumulative effect, hence the bucket theory. And the bucket theory is this, is that we are surrounded by unbelievable amounts of ionization. And just think of just a few little factoids. How much time do we spend in front of the TV and computer screen now? The computer screen really wasn't much of a topic 20 years ago. Now, it seems like everyone is exposed to a fairly big amount. A study shows that cell phones radiation have a profound impact. We are really in the very beginning of understanding it. But I do know, I've seen several small pilot studies, but good enough to be able to talk about here, that shows that if you carry it in your pocket, now this is for males, It decreases sperm motility by 60% on average in just 4 weeks. Isn't that absolutely amazing? There was disbelief about this one, so the test was repeated. No, I would not use this as birth control pill. So I saw a few knowing glances there. So the test was repeated and same results, just slightly different results, but really essentially the same. Taking the phone out, normalize sperm count and motility in 3 weeks' time. Isn't that amazing? We've also had studies that show that there's definite brainwave change with certain amount of minutes when you hold it right up to your ear. We don't know how to interpret it. It appears that it actually has a protective effect against certain brain tumors, which totally puzzles me, but it depletes certain amounts of memory. So it affects us in ways that we just don't know. That's just the cell phone. Just think of the clock by your bed. Just think of everything we're exposed to. Folks, this causes changes in our DNA. It damages our DNA. It's called ionization. The pollutants that we have, we estimate that we are adding to the list of pollutants about 10,000 new chemicals every 2 years. We cannot keep track of it. There's no way we can test it all. In fact, what we are testing for safety and efficacy is about 1 to 2% of new chemicals being approved. There is no keeping up with it. We are under such assault today that we weren't under even just 20 years ago. Add to that the generational, the cumulative effect. And here it is. Our grandparents started this experiment of refined food, right? That's about when food in boxes started arriving. And that's also when antibiotics arrived and the first pharmaceuticals really became getting traction. So there was a level of increased toxicity in our grandparents. The Industrial Revolution was just behind them. That then got passed over to our parents. 20% of mom's pollutants gets passed on to the baby. Baby then has that extra 20% and accumulates the extra from that environment and passes it on then to us. So you can see that we are the recipients of several layers of pollution, aren't we? And they are stored in our fat cells and the nervous system cells. They are all over our body. And as we age, they leach out and they express themselves more and more. On top of that, we have the stresses of today, as well as really the increased stresses of just living 24/7. That common word, there's just non-stop stress, where if you have to go, this is my common, I wear this one out to death, but here it is. If you forgot something for the next day, you have to run to Meijer at 11 o'clock at night, you can do it, right? And everybody's looking at me like, yeah, so? It's where culturally in Europe, and not that Europe is great, I don't want to give you that idea at all, but there's a couple things that are good about Europe that we don't have, and same vice versa. And here's one of them. Their life is very rhythmic, where stores will close, kaboom, you're not getting in. The only thing open is a few gas stations on the highway. That's it. So there's no quick running to the store anymore. You can't disrupt your life. Does that make sense? Simple little thing, I know. But still, running to the store at 11 o'clock at night is a stressor, isn't it? It is for me when I have to run and get a poster board for the project for the next day for one of my kids. Why didn't you take care of that yesterday? All right, so. And nutrition feeds the energy of life. I'm going somewhere with all this, so this seems like a weird jump. Antioxidants to reduce inflammatory and free radical processes. Fatty acids for all membrane integrity, detox support, and methyl groups for proper genetic expression of cellular function. This is what I look for in a multiple vitamin to do for us. Something that feeds our ATP production. Because when we have DNA changes, that changes mitochondria. Mitochondria is the little things within the cell that produces ATP. ATP is the currency of energy. So if somebody comes to me with chronic fatigue, or chronic depression, or chronic autoimmune disease, chronic inflammation, I know there ultimately is an ATP production problem. That's the cell health issue that we can also measure to some degree on the BIA. Antioxidants do damage control. The fats protects the cell wall. This is really important because if you've had a BIA done over here, you know that I put great importance on extracellular water and intercellular water. Where's your water at? How much are you leaking out of cells? How much is inside of cells? I'm measuring membrane integrity. And why is that important? On the membrane is all kinds of little things, receptors, that are like buttons that if you push that button, the cell will do something. So, and then we have all kinds of things floating in our body that come along and says, you know, I need that cell to really start kicking in because that person just took Tylenol and that liver cell better kick in to detoxify that. So in comes one of those little floaty things and hits the cell on the membrane and makes the liver cell accelerate. That's why cell membrane integrity is so important. This is why we tout fish oil supplements so much, okay? Because it really works on the cell membrane integrity. Detox support. Obviously, we need a good, healthy liver and kidney function. And methyl groups for proper genetic expression and cellular function. I'm going to get into methylation in just a bit. This is a really exciting topic. 5 hours of cellular healing. Okay, this is the first time that we've introduced this to you. It might change just a bit, but I thought, let's go down to the cellular level. We have the 4-hour program for gut healing. And if those of you that have been to our seminars know that you have to remove and re-inoculate and replace the enzymes. This is the 5 hours of cellular healing. Remove the source. In other words, if the patient is being blasted by toxins from the outside because they're a professional painter, or they're being blasted by toxicity from within, they're reacting to a food allergen, or they're just plain eating junk food, or they're smoking. You remove the source that's affecting the cells. And then you give nutrients to regenerate the cell membrane, which then will restore the ATP energy production. You've got to reduce inflammation, free radical damage, which is aging, and re-establish methylation. There's that word again, methylation. Let's dig into that. What is methylation? This is 21st century medicine. This is medicine that is so advanced that medicine really hasn't caught on to this yet, and it is shocking. We've known about this for quite a long time. We've known of the importance of this for about 5 years now, and it's just starting to add layers and layers and layers. You are going to see this headlined on things, magazines like Time Magazine, seriously. Because methylation is a methyl group added or subtracted from substance to turn on or off. Now, what is a methyl group? Those of you that are interested in chemistry, it's a carbon atom surrounded by 3 hydrogens. That's a methyl group. And you can attach a methyl group to, say, a toxin that's fat soluble, which is not good. It goes into the nervous system, into the brain, stuck in fat cells, which is, by the way, why we have such difficult time losing weight. All those toxins are stuck there. Got it? But if you attach a methyl group to the toxin, all of a sudden, magic happens. It becomes water soluble. A whole lot easier to get rid of, isn't it? This is something that occurs extensively in the liver, by the way, but everywhere else in the body as well. So it's kind of important to help a patient methylate. And really, when you study what methylation does, it just turns things on or off, like genes. Epigenetic expression. This is so cool because you remember when we first just mapped out the whole genome. Now we have the answer to every disease. This is so cool, and it is cool because you can do an incredible readout, but it didn't at all predict behavior or disease or any of that. None. What we then discovered that we had, what was, I still remember sitting in a lecture, this is about 15 to 20 years ago, and this researcher was describing DNA and how we can affect DNA and how ionization and pollutants affects DNA, and it was really interesting. And then he was describing junk DNA. I'm thinking, junk DNA? God doesn't make junk. I mean, junk. But where does that come from? He says, yeah, it's just part of, it just sits there and it's just junk and we think it's just discarded material. And then he went on and on. It just stuck in my brain. And wouldn't you know it, that junk DNA we now know is probably the most vital part of cellular health that we know of. Because this junk DNA is what can turn on and off good genes and bad genes. And methylation does that. So what if you have a gene called BRCA1 and BRCA2? This is a breast cancer disease. gene. Breast cancer risk is about 80% here if you have both those genes. We're talking extremely high. They're always talking about, well, you should get a mastectomy and all this and that. And I'm always asking the question, well, what about the 20% that didn't get it? What happened there? So I did find a small study out of Iowa where there was a family, fairly large family, that has BRCA1 and BRCA2, and it found that those that followed the Mediterranean diet did not get the breast cancer. Genetic expression. Yeah. Another clear example, and those of you that have been in the seminars here before know that genetic expression can be changed, and even with looks. Let's take the Native American. I've used this example a lot, but it's fairly profound. You look at the Native American pictures from the 1880s. They're tall, they're proud, they look really handsome. They're very athletic, they lived long lives, and very strong intellect. And if you look at them today, average age 45 for males. Very short, on average 6 inches shorter. On average, and I'm guessing on this one, 100 pounds heavier. And they're very round shaped. Pockmarked skin. Racked by disease, autoimmune diseases. Diabetes is over 60% in the Native American population. Same genes. What changed is epigenetic expression. Their environment changed, and now we're hitting the wrong buttons on it. So what are we going to do with our genes? Let it tell a story of horror, or shall we express a fairy tale? You can have a fairy tale, but you do the on and off switching with something called methylation. Telomeres is a really interesting one also. We are born with a certain length of telomeres, and about 1/3 of it gets used up just by developing from a single cell to a newborn baby. And what we have left is what determines our lifespan. When those telomeres are gone, it can no longer hold our DNA together. DNA unravels, cell death occurs, and there's nothing you can do. That's it. So telomere stability is really, really important. You can slow down telomere shortening. We know how to do it. We're excited about this. This research is only 3 years old. We're going to share that in a minute. Toxins. Remember how I said you can make them water soluble or fat soluble just by attaching the methyl group? That's methylation. Hormones, same thing. If you have too much inflammatory hormone, I was treating a 16-year-old today that has absolutely horrid periods, acne, really has non-stop periods. And I told her this is a problem that you're not detoxifying. I didn't say methylation because her eyes were already glazing over with my explanation. But you're not detoxifying your bad hormones. In other words, she wasn't methylating them. And it was just going into this horrible inflammatory state. Again, methylation. Your stress response, your stress hormones, whether you're turning them on or off excessively, is methylation. Inflammation pathways is purely methylation. Turning them on, turning them off. Rheumatoid arthritis, that is a methylation issue. And yes, weight loss and mitochondrial function. I can go on and on, as you can imagine. I think I've beat this one enough, don't you? We are going to do a whole seminar series in this sometime. It's fascinating stuff. Can't wait, right? So, science is rethinking what a daily nutritional supplement should be. So I'd like it to include all these things. Phytonutrients should be clearly influence healthy function and aging. A typical multivitamin ignores phytonutrients. Phytonutrients helps the healthy messages of vitamins and minerals be heard. In other words, what are phytonutrients? Pure plant extracts. There are thousands and thousands of molecules in each plant extract that we don't even know what it does. We know it enhances cell-to-cell communication, protects DNA, increases ATP production, is just a vital part of what we have to have in a multivitamin. This is now going beyond what my mother was describing. She asked me, I was talking to her on the phone. She says, well, Mom, I'm talking about vitamins today. She says, huh, you know, in World War II, in Haarlem, that's her hometown in the Netherlands, we were always given this sour little vitamin. It was like one of the first vitamins ever made, and that's about right, because 1939 is when they first started giving them out. So this was probably 1942 or 43. And she says, it was kind of sour tasting. I says, well, Mom, that was almost certainly ascorbic acid, vitamin C. And that was a good thing that you got that, because the deficiencies of just raw nutritional deficiencies during World War II in the cities was horrid. Mom, at full height, which would be 5'6", weighed 80 pounds at the end of the war. So obviously wasn't getting enough nutrients. But yet what they tried to do was just try to at least cover some of the bases for raw deficiencies. That was a very good purpose for the vitamin. Today's stresses are way, way beyond that. We're not living in World War II. We are exposed to all those things that I was talking about. So phytonutrients all of a sudden becomes a really important thing, because even if you're eating almost totally plant-based diets, we all know about the depletion of the soil and a decrease in quality of the nutrients in our plants. It's kind of a scary topic to study. So plant-based foods such as fruit, vegetables, whole grains, which contain significant amounts of bioactive phytochemicals, may provide desirable health benefits beyond basic nutrition. This is American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Pretty basic, but for it to appear in a medical journal is big. End the show. And there was silence. Can we, or we can do it by hand. Do you know how to do it by hand? Oh, I say beep and it goes. So phytonutrients are really important how you process them also. I look for them to be cold processed, to be harvested when they are in their flowering peak. They should be processed within 24 hours of harvesting, and they should be stored in vats to be used within 1 month's time. These are all really important points. German Commission E requirements require that. Here, it doesn't happen. You harvest it whenever. It might not even be organic. You don't know what you're getting. Even though it says phytonutrients, it might not truly be the phytonutrients. So there's all kinds of secondary metabolites in plants to help them respond to stressors. In humans, phytonutrients have a profound influence in the body, and it gives antioxidant protection, that DNA stability I'm looking for, cell-to-cell communication, toxin clearance, hormone metabolism, and preventing cell death, etc. Okay. So the multivitamin that I was describing that my mom was taking just takes care of raw deficiency diseases. Important back then, not really doing the job now anymore. If you're going out and buying Centrum, and I thought of that as Mom was talking to me, I said, you know, Centrum probably would have been okay, could we have done better? Yeah. But it would have been okay in World War II. It would have taken care of some raw deficiencies. But today, a vitamin like Centrum actually is harmful. It is harmful because studies have shown that the synthetic vitamins, like the vitamin A that's in there, which by the way is present in 95% of multiple vitamins out there, actually causes an increase in cancer incidence. It does the opposite of what you want it to do. And why would that be? It's because the synthetic form of these vitamins causes a clash within the body with the natural vitamin A's that are present, and pulls out some of the natural vitamin A's, it binds it to the synthetic one, creating an unstable vitamin A over here, which can have harmful toxic effects. This is why the FDA requires you gotta be careful not to use too much vitamin A due to vitamin A toxicity. What you don't hear is that if you use all natural plant-based vitamin A, you can go up to 20 times the RDA without any harmful effects. This is an important thing to note. So when a patient says, well, I'm taking Centrum or something like that, or some sort of other synthetic multivitamin, I always tell them, I'd rather that you just didn't take any vitamins. You're wasting your time, you're increasing your risk factors, you're harming yourself. You've got to be careful with what you put in there. And more is not better. Common phytonutrient multivitamin formulas, few phytonutrients or powders with insignificant unverified levels of beneficial plant actives. That's what I was talking about earlier, is you don't know what you're getting with most phytonutrients, if it does have some in there. You want to have a vitamin that has the clinical data to back it up. It's been through clinical trials. They have studied it. They know how it works, and that to me is extremely important. There's very few vitamin companies that put that type of effort into it. Okay, yeah. Is it working again? Awesome. So now we come across something really interesting that you want to look for, and that's ORAC value. ORAC value is antioxidant value. This is what protects you against the toxins and ionization. And an ORAC value of a half a cup of blueberries is about 500, just to give you an idea. What I look for is ORAC values that are even more than that. And I think we have found it with one of the vitamins that we're now distributing called Phytomulti. It's got an ORAC value of 5,200 when you study just the phytonutrients. But if you put it all together, Dr. Stacey pointed out, we've got a functional ORAC of 25,000. Think of how much blueberries is in just one multivitamin. This has been confirmed with independent studies, and we've also done something on this multivitamin called a COMET assay, which is just a fancy word for saying how does it enhance DNA stability, how does it protect you against DNA changes. You want to know the COMET assay of your multivitamin, and this one here, the latest clinical trials show that it enhances DNA stability by 52%, which is a huge number. And this is now replacing our core foundation. It's the new 21st century multivitamin. It also includes things such as your lycopenes, inositols, and all the vitamin A's for macular degeneration and eye health. It's got all the phytonutrients that I was looking for. And we have studied this now for about 5 years, been researched by 40 scientists, and that's one of the multivitamins that I've been able to come up with that I feel very strongly about is a vitamin for the 21st century. It's extremely affordable, not quite as cheap as Centrum, but is at least a competitor. It's something that I'm extremely proud of. So it follows some of the steps that I went through, the independent clinical assessments, GMP certification, the ability to import anywhere in the world because it meets the German Commission E guidelines and all those things. All nutrients have clinical studies behind it, and inexpensive.
And that's Phyto-Complete?
Phytomulti.
Oh.
Yeah, just got released. So only 2 per day. More is not better, by the way. If you go with fairly high quantities, you're getting too many antioxidants that causes chronic fatigue and causes ATP production to actually go down. More is not better. There's this bell curve. You want to hit it at the peak of the bell curve. I'm currently experimenting with it myself to see how much it would take to cause fatigue. So far, I haven't hit it yet. But I will let you know. I'm using myself as a guinea pig.
You never get tired.
But I will. I know I'll hit that point. So, oh, where does that come from? So it'll be interesting. I will let you know. So fish oil is also very complicated. There's so much to this. There's so much cheating going on in the whole fish oil industry. I walked past a big bin called Kirkland's, I think, in Costco. Is that right, Kirkland's? And I bought it, and because it was like $8 for a big thing like that, so that's unbelievable. And so I opened it and smelled it. That's my first test, and it smelled fishy. It's not supposed to smell fishy. That means some rancidity is going on. So I wrote in, what do you think? And they gave me back this little sheet that was just basically, well, these are the FDA requirements that we follow, blah, 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 blah. And I said, not good enough. I want to know more. So they sent me back the process, and basically they should not have sent that to me. It showed them, they should not have. It showed the manufacturing process under high heat, high pressure condition. They chlorinate the product. It was absolutely just harsh chemicals to wash out any supposed contaminants, and the bare minimum of testing for heavy metals, that bare minimum. So I said, well, what about rancidity? Because that's what was my original thing. Well, no, we don't test for that. So then I went to another company and asked them, it was Amway, asked them, well, what about rancidity with you guys? Yeah, we test for it. Great. We test for it. Well, I said, but what about the fact that if your product goes so rancid, then that chemical actually disappears also? Really? That was news. And apparently nobody knows about that, but there is another product that will appear if your product really goes rancid, and that's called encinidine. You better believe that I look for encinidine testing in my products. And it's got to be third-party assay. It's okay if they do it in-house. In fact, I expect them, but I want an independent party to verify those things, and that's what we look for. We also look for source and where it came from, because I don't want fish coming from areas that are overfished. We've got to take care of our environment. This is absolutely critical. So we want to do it in a safe, sustainable way, and that's fish oil. Now, why am I hitting fish oil? It's one of the more important products that you can take. This is one of the biggest bangs in the buck that you could absolutely invest in on your health, because only 2 grams a day reduces your chances of heart attack risk by 50% and stroke risk by 55%. Show me a drug that'll do that. Only 2 a day. Minimal investment. Does it do other things? Yeah, it reduces the inflammatory cascades such as the arthritides. It reduces cholesterol, it clears up skin, it helps balance hormones. I can go on and on and on. Only 2 grams of fish oil will do that a day. But you have to do this for life. So it better be clean, it better not be rancid, it better not have heavy metals, and it better have clinical trials showing this particular product works. So we get ours from Nordic Naturals, which has over 13 published peer-reviewed clinical studies on it. 30 more studies in process on their products right now, all done by in-house scientists, but they're studied, or they're published in outside journals. In other words, it met all kinds of criteria. We also have several other companies that meet the same kind of criteria. One of our favorites is actually something called Max EPA, which is 6 times the potency of regular fish oil. Extremely anti-inflammatory. It's what we use with our autoimmune diseases and gut disorders. So Max EPA at only 2 a day gives you about the equivalent of what 8 EPA DHA tablets would give you. So it's a little more expensive, but really it's a cost saver. So yeah, fish oil, it's a complicated one. And probiotics, it's even more complicated, because honestly, folks, we really don't know what we're doing with probiotics. We really don't know what we're doing. We're at the very beginning of understanding. I was at a gastrointestinal symposium, which is part of a program I'm following to get a master's degree in functional medicine. I hope to be in the first graduating class of that. And it was a 3-day symposium on gut health, and there was absolutely no agreement. All these experts from around the world were all over the map. The only thing they agreed on, that there was benefits in probiotics, but they didn't know how and which one and why. The best research right now comes from Belgium, and we got some pretty cool statistics from Belgium. It shows that if you give an infant bifidus for the first year of life, by the time they're 8, you've reduced their chances of asthma and eczema, which by the way is a precursor to autoimmune diseases later on in life. You've reduced that by 60% on average, just the first year of life. So that's kind of cool. It shows also that after antibiotic use, if you with kids under 5, for 3 weeks give bifidus, you reduce their chances of reinfection by over 80%. This is pretty big. Same studies apply to adults, but then it's got to be a lactobacillus, the NCFM strain. The other strains could not demonstrate that. I know, it gets tricky. And now we have all kinds of different bacilli, bugs that we know fight inflammation. This one is against yeast. And so we're constantly sorting through it, constantly keeping ourselves up to date, and making sure that what we give to our patients actually survives the stomach acids. We know survives in the gut, changes the gut, and has not experienced something like genetic drift, which means we're giving people weird bugs, is live activity, and this is all really, really complicated stuff. We also know that I'll share with you something very strange. One of the worst bug infestations you can have is C. diff. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It stands for Clostridium difficile. And it's something that I first became aware of about 12 years ago before it was even known anywhere, because the first cases was published out of Montreal, Quebec, where it was found in nursing homes. And they found that it was totally resistant to all antibiotics, could not get rid of it, chronic diarrhea, old patients were dying from this. This has since become very widespread. And I have a 16-year-old patient that's been infected by Clostridium difficile. She's a handicapped young lady. And I'd been begging mom to give her what we call a fecal transplant. And basically it's just giving a sample of your own feces and implanting it inside the child's gut. I know that sounds really, really bizarre. But we know that it works. And it works very well. And we've been doing this to some degree and for 30 years. And I literally begged U of M, right here in the hospitals over here, to do this. It took 10 years, because we've been dealing with this for that long, to do this. Patients have tried everything. We're talking every medical thing that we knew, including my stuff, could not get rid of it. And finally convinced U of M to at least monitor how they would do it on their own. And so they did. And the child has a feeding tube. Put that in, and wouldn't you know it, infection totally cleared 5 days. 5 days. There's a lot we don't know about the gut and the probiotics. There's something in genetics. There's something that we just don't know. But what you are getting from us is the very latest in know-how, and we're keeping very current with what we know and how to apply it. Yeah? So, pretty fascinating stuff. So, this whole topic of quality control and how we build a vitamin is a big one. I feel very strongly about some of the quality controls that we have put in place. I hopefully, along with Dr. Stacey, have equipped you on some basics on what to check for. Because certainly what we recommend is not the only thing out there that is excellent, but what we do like to think is what we do recommend is excellent. It's just not the only thing. So hopefully you're more equipped to judge what's out there. Also what to look for in a 21st century vitamin, as the whole situation as far as health needs has changed in the last 10 to 20 years. What have we done to put together a vitamin to combat that? And I mentioned the phytomulti, which creates DNA stability, the phytonutrients, special support for the eyes, as well as all the B vitamins. I didn't mention that in methylated form to enhance methylation, which is the first vitamin ever to have all those features in it. So we're mighty proud of that. I've watched Dr. Jeffrey Bland and his team of 40 scientists put this thing to work. They bounced ideas off of us, which I really appreciated, because we're right here with the real patients, and they've really done a good job implementing some of our insights. We have a gastroenterologist researcher visiting us on Thursday, and he's going to certainly give Dr. Stacey and I even more insights before he goes on to U of M and do rounds with them at the medical school and hopefully indoctrinate them in this good stuff that we're hearing here today.